Disciples rejoice, today is the day. That's right, we're back with Centuria chapter 13. But before we continue, be sure to hit that follow button for more Centuria content, and let's dive right in. Also, I'm aware I look a little bit different. I decided I looked too much like a hobo and had to clean shave, but I'm feeling a lot better now, and we're going to pump out this content for you. Here we go. Chapter 13, titled A World Engulfed in Flames, begins at the western border headquarters with a flashback to a time when Angval had been summoned into the king's courtroom. And the opening tagline reads, "To what kind of king did Angval swear her allegiance to?" And we see that the king, flanked by these two ominous-looking knights in suits of black armor, as well as the prophetess ELSTRI'S right here, as she begins a dialogue. "Knight Angval, for your heroic deeds in this battle, you have been appointed to the king's guard." We then see Angval, several years younger in this picture, kneel before the king with a young Titi clinging to her cape behind her anxiously. And Angval says, "O Supreme Lord, this truly is a great honor. However, I'm afraid I wish to decline this opportunity." And ELSTRI'S is shocked by this answer. "What?" And the king watches on silently with the same shadowy expression he's known for. Angval continues, "This child's parents were killed in the war. I wish to raise her in their stead. I humbly request time for this purpose." And ELSTRI'S scoffs, "What a preposterous reason!" But the king taps his armrest, shutting ELSTRI'S up immediately as he begins to rise up from his throne, descending the steps toward Angval. The king observes Angval for a moment as she bows lowly before speaking directly to Titi. "The responsibility of your parents' death lies with me as the king. I deeply apologize." ELSTRI'S tries to object. "My lord, to say such a thing!" But the king interrupts her. "ELSTRI'S, make sure to pay sufficient compensation to all subjects harmed by the war. And Angval, in the southern lands there is a peaceful district that is abundant in nature. Give this child a new life there. Build a home for she who has lost her family and home. Offer her a place of solace and refuge." And Angval is deeply shocked and touched by the king's generosity, bowing as she says, "Yes, your majesty, I humbly accept. I am deeply grateful." She thinks to herself, "His majesty is beyond compassionate. I'm willing to lay down my life for the sake of this land, ruled over by his majesty. And if a time should come where his majesty needs me, I vow to rush into any battlefield. I'll slay my enemy." We then cut back to the present, where Julian stands terrified, with an unknowing Diana smiling in his arms, no matter who they may be. It's at this point that ELSTRI'S speaks up, and she says, "Angval, I stand here as the king's representative. My voice is the king's voice. My orders are the king's orders. Therefore, my will is the king's will. As a knight, it is completely unforgivable to disobey the king." Angval tries to protest. "But this can't be. Please, there must be some mistake." ELSTRI'S eyes begin to flare with a power of her own as she says, "Just now, I foresaw a glimpse of the future. I shall show you this vision of a world I've seen engulfed by flames." Angval is then transported to a world created by ELSTRI'S vision, showing the royal capital of Rungbalkar under siege. Flames engulf the entire capital city, bodies strewn across the ground as several shadowy figures stand on the outskirts, having slayed countless villagers. The king sits dead on his throne. A man dies trying to protect his child, presumably Julian. And as the fire spread across the town, Angval gets a good look at something horrifying. There in front of her is a fully grown version of Diana, dressed in all black and holding a sharp blade atop a pile of corpses. And wouldn't you know it, she looks an awful lot like Mira back from chapter 1 to no one's surprise. And Angval, having experienced the overwhelming power of this vision, collapses to her knees. "Ugh!" She pants wildly, trying to catch her breath as she understands the magnitude of what she's just been shown. And ELSTRI'S grounds her, asking, "Do you comprehend our king's situation now? This world stands at a crossroad." Angval lets out a deep sigh as she rises to her feet, pulling her helm over top her head, and Julian's voice stutters. "Angval?" But Angval, fully prepared for battle now, turns to Julian with a command. "Julian, hand over Diana, now." An absolutely broken and horrified Julian's markings flare to life inside his eyes, and before either ELSTRI'S or Angval can react, he takes Diana in his arms and makes a desperate break through the wall of the cabin. Now several villagers are outside when he does this, confusion quickly spreading amongst the masses. "Whoa! What on earth? Julian? What happened? And one of the knights outside speaks. Lady Elstree, what are your orders? Elstree answers, Don't let that boy escape! Knights, prepare yourself for battle! Julian finds himself surrounded by knights on all sides, any chance of escape seemingly impossible as Engvall emerges from the shack where Julian had just exploded through moments ago behind Elstree. And the closing tagline to this chapter reads, Diana, branded as a demon child. And that's where the chapter ends. We did have a fairly short chapter today, but my God, what an impactful chapter that was. First, I think we have to mention that Elstree is straight up using and abusing and manipulating Engvall here, because whether or not her vision is true, it doesn't make a difference, since the king himself is not here to oversee this order or this battle, and therefore has no means of giving his own orders. And given what we were shown in the opening flashback, I find it hard to believe that this same king would ever order the execution of an innocent baby just to keep himself alive. He seems far too compassionate for something like that. But again, we don't truly know enough about him yet to be sure. However, if we assume that this king's compassion is real and that the leader Engvall serves isn't a lie, then that would imply the order to kill Diana came from Elstree and Elstree alone, based solely on the vision that she was shown. And that would also imply that she's working outside of what the king's orders for her were. Plus, we have yet to confirm the validity of Elstree's visions themselves. For all we know, she could be making this entire prophecy up. Either way, this story is very clearly setting up Elstree to be the main antagonist. And within 2 chapters of seeing her, it's already done a wonderful job of making me hate Elstree to her core. Once again, props to Kutamori-san for designing these characters in a way that you can form opinions on them and either gravitate to or away from them almost instantly. You can either get drawn to or repelled by how evil they are. It's beautiful, it's masterful work on Kutamori's side. There's not a single character in Centuria that I'm not completely invested in somehow. You gotta think, though, that this battle with the knights that Julian's about to undergo has to be a prelude to Arcos' arrival, because we haven't even spoken about him yet. He wasn't featured in this chapter. He's obviously going to make his way to the village sometime soon, but we have not yet seen him. And now that I'm thinking about it, Arcos and Elstree is a terrifying partnership. If they end up working together, they could cause a lot of destruction. I'm completely on the edge of my seat reading this, and I can't wait to see how this battle plays out. But y'all let me know your thoughts and theories down in the comments below. God bless you all. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and thanks so much for watching.